Hey, what's up, everybody? Ron Harris here. Thanks for joining me at Ron Harris Muscle. Today, I want to talk about some of the forgotten mass monsters of bodybuilding. Not all of these guys are forgotten. If you've been following the sport for any length of time, you're probably familiar with a few of them, but some of you newer fans, definitely, you're going to see some physiques here that will blow your mind because you might know guys like Big Ramy, Samson Dauda. We've got some big dudes out there now, but we had a lot of mass monsters, especially in the 1990s, you may not be totally familiar with. So let's start out with Markus Ruhl from Germany. This is footage from his 2002 Night of Champions win. This was 22 years ago. So we didn't have iPhones, of course, back then. This is somebody's camcorder. It's not the greatest quality, but good Lord. There's not morph. There's nothing being done to this image. He was really that big. He was 5'10", went about 270 to 280 on stage. Turned pro in 1997. He competed all the way till 2010. Night of Champions, he was 2000 Night of Champions. He was second place to Jay Cutler in a field of 44 men. See, back then they didn't have 212, they didn't have Physique Classic, they didn't have any of that. It was just Night of Champions was men, open men bodybuilding. We didn't even have the phrase open. It was just bodybuilding. So that was a great showing for him. 2000, he had his first win at the Toronto Pro. Here we see him in 2002 winning Night of Champions. Best Arnold Classic he ever did was 2003. He was third place behind Jay Cutler and Chris Cormier. Best Mr. Olympia showing he ever had was 2004. He was fifth place behind Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Gustavo Bedell, and Dexter. At that Arnold where he got third, he beat Dexter Jackson and Kevin Levrone. So he was no slouch. He did not have the prettiest shape, obviously, but he had massive shoulders, arms, back, legs. He was just a freakishly huge human being. Markus Ruhl, for the guys who think, guys, the bodybuilders today are so much bigger than the past days gone by. No, not true. Let's take a look at one more bit of footage. So this was 1999. It was the day after the Mr. Olympia. This is from the Battle for the Olympia tape. They were VHS tapes back then. Look at the chest. That was one of his most impressive body parts. I was always impressed with how thick and dense and striated his chest was. Biceps were awesome. Triceps were never quite as good as the biceps. Little story. The first time I met him was in 1998, before he had competed as a pro, I believe. I was in the Gold's Gym, Venice. They called the Pro Shop, where they sold all the T-shirts, tank tops, supplements, stuff like that. He was just looking through a rack of T-shirts, and I saw him from behind in a sweatshirt. And I had never seen somebody so wide and massive across the back and shoulders. So I creeped around. I still didn't recognize him, so I went up and asked him who he was. And he didn't speak great English at the time. He speaks much better English now, but he introduced himself, and I was like, "Wow, man, you're gonna be pretty damn great, Mr. Ruhl." And sure enough, he was. He was ahead of his time in terms of mass. But like I said, the 90s was an era where we had a lot of big dudes. Most of the people I'll be talking about on this video, their heyday was the 1990s. So I just want to get up and I want to wait for him to hit this posing shot because look at that. Look at the traps, the delts. He was a specimen, Marcus. He was awesome. All right. Okay, let's move on to the one guy who never competed as a pro. His name was Victor Richards. He was the Nigerian Nightmare. Actually, his official nickname was Mr. Big. He started showing up in the Weider magazines in like Muscle and Fitness and Flex sometime around 86, 87. As far as a competitive record, there's not much there. He won the 1983 Teenager Los Angeles Championships, teenager in 83. Supposedly, there was a contest in Nigeria that Weider had organized just so he could win it and get his pro card. It was him and a couple skinny guys from Nigeria. Skinny compared to him, but let's take a look. So Vic, this is just a little montage of how big he was. That's the outdoor workout area at World Gym Venice. The gym's no longer there. Massive, thick, round, dense arms, 24 inches. And this is, he was this big in the 80s, guys. I remember seeing an article on Muscle Fitness, and they were taping out his arms at 24. His legs, I think, were 36. He was 5'9" or 5'10", went about 300 pounds. That's my dog in the background. He would diet down for photo shoots, but he never got into what I would consider true competition condition, but he was a big dude. He trained at my gym. Here he is. This was famous. He posed at FIBO in 94 at over 300 next to Dorian. And, you know, size-wise, he was every bit as big as Dorian. From the back, Dorian had him beat like it wasn't even close. But from the front, man, he was massive. Like I said, the chest, the shoulders, the arms, the thighs, they were all enormous on this guy. Yeah, so he trained at my gym in Pasadena for a few months. Not sure why he was in the area. Here's that Dorian footage. Yeah, look at that. He's every bit as big as Dorian and Dillett. And he was so strong. I remember our gym only had dumbbells up to 150. He didn't like that. He was pretty upset that that's all we had because he could bang those out for 20, 25 reps. He would ask me to spot him, which is crazy. He didn't need a spot. Those dumbbells were not heavy for him. He just liked to know that someone was there in case of emergency. But Vic Richards, Mr. Big, the original Nigerian star, long before Andrew Jack and Blessing and Quentin Aria, these other guys that have come out of Nigeria. He was the first great Nigerian bodybuilder we ever knew about. Next guy I'm going to show you is from Spain, Francisco Paco Bautista. Everybody called him Paco. He turned pro in 1999 at the World Amateur Championships as a heavyweight. And I'll show you, he was not the most aesthetically pleasing guy at all. But good Lord, did he have a lot of muscle, and he was freaky. So here he is, as you can see. Condition was pretty damn great. He wasn't out of shape or anything. He's just, look at how wide, he had really wide waists, a really blocky look. But as you'll see, just a freak, a mass monster. So competitive-wise, did okay. 2002 Night of Champions that Ruhl just won. He was third place behind winner Markus Ruhl, Bob Ciccarello in second. And that was out of 31 guys. See, Mr. Olympia, he didn't do too well at the Olympia. He was 20th place in 2002 out of 25. In 06, 07, and 2010, he did not place, which means they probably just placed the top 15, and everyone else after that, you get a no place. Now, interestingly, he got 2 pro wins, but I'm going to put asterisks next to those pro wins because they were both in Santa Susana, the Santa Susana Pro. 2 years in a row he won that, 2006 and 7. First year he beat Markus Ruhl and Dennis Wolf, which, come on, guys, look at that. I mean, we just saw Markus Ruhl, and you know how great Dennis Wolf was. There's no way he was legitimately beating them, but there was some shady shit going on in judging back in those days, especially over in Europe. A lot of times if you went to a show in Spain and the guy was from Spain, he would get favorable treatment from the judges. I don't know what other countries are happening, but I looked at the roster, and there's no way that this guy could have beaten Dennis Wolf and Markus Ruhl. So, you know, God bless the guy, but I think those were 2 contests were both gifted to Paco. But take nothing away from him in terms of mass. You know, like any mass monster, he looks awesome in the most muscular poses where you really can't see how blocky and thick the waist is. Stuff like that where the waist is covered, he looks great. Typically, guys with those kind of physiques, with the awful structures and wide waist, they look really good in the side shots and in the front, most muscular poses. So let's move on. Next guy was not obscure. He's not forgotten, but I don't think a lot of the current generation appreciates how good this guy was. I'm talking about Nasser El Sonbatty. This was a 1997 Olympia, a contest a lot of people felt he should have won, but in the end, he was awarded second place behind Dorian, who at that point had already torn a bicep a couple of years before. He was competing with a torn tricep. Dorian was all banged up and torn up at that point. So legitimate argument could be made that Nasser was the guy who should have been awarded that Olympia title there, 1997 in Long Beach. Nasser, let's see, he was 5'11", competed anywhere from 260 to 280 over the years. Let's see, he died pretty young. He was only 47 years old when he passed away in 2013 of kidney failure and heart complications. He competed a lot. Do I have other pictures of him? I think that's it. Yeah, he competed a lot. I didn't make more pictures of him. He did 53 pro shows. He had some good wins. 95 Houston Pro, 96. I'm sorry, he won the Night of Champions that year as well, 95. 1996, he won the Grand Prix Czech Republic, Grand Prix Russia, Spain, Switzerland. He won the 99 Arnold Classic. Mr. Olympia in 1994, he made his debut with 7th. 1995, he was 3rd behind Dorian Yates and Kevin Levrone. 96 was the year of the diuretics testing. He got popped and disqualified. 97, the show we're looking at, a very controversial second place to Dorian Yates. Let's see, a couple more appearances. 98, which was Ronnie's first win. He got third place behind Ronnie and Flex Wheeler. 99, he was down in 6th. 2000, 5th. 2001, 9th. And his final appearance on the Olympic stage would be 2002 with 15th place. But man, he was an amazing bodybuilder, mass monster, pretty damn good shape. And he was a brilliant man too. He spoke, I believe it was 7 languages fluently. He had college educated. He was a smart dude. He wasn't a dummy. Very well versed in nutrition and PEDs. Let's move on. The next guy is definitely the most massive of all bodybuilders. He was billed as the world's strongest bodybuilder. And in terms of stature and body weight, Greg Kovacs from Canada was the biggest. So Greg was, I've seen him build as anywhere from 6'2 to 6'5. I think he was closer to 6'2. Competition, he went anywhere from 292 when he turned pro to he was about 330 at his heaviest on stage. So heaviest guy ever took to stage. Off season, he was known to get up to 400, even 420 pounds. I'm going to show you later what he looked like when he turned pro. But as he put on size, more and more size, all that seemed to really grow was the midsection. Arms didn't get any bigger. Legs looked like they were downsizing over the time. That's a picture from when he got his pro card. Which we're going to look at that footage because he looked great. But this is what happened to him later in his career as he got bigger and bigger. The belly, man. Doesn't look too bad there next to Dexter, but as you'll see, the midsection just got wider and thicker, and the limbs didn't grow. They call it Palumboism. He's a prime example of it. It was not a pretty showing. He didn't do much as a pro. 1997, Night of Champions, did not place. 98 Pro Ironman, he was 16th out of 19. 2001 Night of Champions, he didn't place. 2004 Arnold Classic, he was last place, 13th. And his final appearance would be the 2005 Toronto Pro, where he did not place. It's unfortunate this physique went downhill, but he made a pretty good living. He had a Muscle Tech contract for years. He's very, very popular. But I want to show you what he looked like when he turned pro because he didn't look bad. Okay, so here he is in 1996. I don't think this was Canadian Nationals. I think it was a show that was called the Canada Pro Cup, which was a second pro qualifier that they had added. But I don't think it lasted. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm wrong quite often, unfortunately. But he was 292, which he felt was over-dieted and too small. Personally, this was the best he ever looked. There's no doubt in my mind because you saw what he looked like when he was heavier. Here he still had a V-taper. His waist wasn't that big. His midsection wasn't that thick here. He could control it. Later on, it was so big he just couldn't control it. His legs were never great, but massive arms. So the stats, I've seen his arms build from anywhere to 25. He claims they were almost 27 at one point. Chest, he says it was almost 72 at one point. Legs, close to 36 inches. That's probably when he was like over 400 pounds, but still, that's a massive, massive, massive guy. Strong, too. Bench press 725 for a couple reps. Incline press 675 for a couple. He could leg press 44 plates for 15 reps. Overhead dumbbell presses 200s for 6. Behind neck press 405 for 12. The Smith machine, he could do a military press to the front, 495 pounds. Now, the legend about him goes that there was a bench press meet he was from the Canada side of the Niagara Falls. Outside, he must have lived outside Niagara Falls. Big farm boy. There was a bench press meet, and they left the weight up after the last guy had finished with whatever it was, 500 or 600 pounds. And supposedly, as the crowd was dispersing, he walked up on stage, got underneath the bench, and banged out with no warm-up. I think it was like 6 or 8 reps, racked it again, and walked out of the place. And everyone's just sitting there with their jaws hanging open because, wow, how do you do that? Very, very strong guy. Pound for pound, if you're 400 pounds, you'd think a guy who's 400 pounds of muscle, which is like, that's like a big strong man, the guys that compete at World's Strongest Men. Some of them like the Mountain, Thor Bjornsson. Some of them are like 400-pound dudes. Brian Shaw, that's a 400-pound dude. So it's a shame he never got into that, but he did make a good living with Muscle Tech. But he left us at only 48 years old. Heart attack. Next guy I want to show you, Paul Dillett. Certainly not an obscure or forgotten guy. Paul was massive, massive. I remember seeing him for the first time at the 1991 North American Championships, where he made his first attempt at a pro card and got second to the late Ray McNeil. Came back the next year and won the whole thing easily. Let's see. So 1994, he started winning shows, Grand Prix in France and Germany. 1999, he won the United Champions out of a field of 43 men. He made his Olympia year, same year, debut year as Flex, 1993 with sixth place. 94, he was in fourth. 96, he was fifth. That 97 Long Beach, we just saw with Nasser, he was in fifth place. So he was a very, very high level Mr. Olympia competitor for a few years there. 98, he didn't place. 99, he dropped to seventh, and that was the last time we would ever see him on Olympia stage. He made a brief comeback in 06 and then retired. And he formed his own bodybuilding and fitness organization called WBBF, which has a lot of shows all over the U.S. and Canada, probably around the world. I'm not really sure. Bodybuilding, modeling stuff, fitness stuff. Very different format and flavor from the IFBB Pro League, and totally separate and independent. He's had nothing to do with the IFBB Pro League and NPC worldwide at all for many, many years since he started his own organization. And he's much, much smaller than that now. He was born in Jamaica, I believe. Yeah, so he's probably about 100 pounds lighter than this now. Just a tremendous responder to things like training and PEDs. And I'm sure he doesn't eat the way he used to eat. But yeah, Jurassic Paul, we called him at the time. And he was massive. Last guy I want to show you, Jean-Pierre Fux. He's still with us, thankfully. Let's see. Let's take a look at him from that. This is that same 1997 Olympia in Long Beach where Nasser took second. So he never won a pro show, but he was a mainstay on the competitive scene for a while. 1994, he earned his pro card at the World Amateurs by winning the heavyweight class. Remember, there was no super heavyweight back then. Everybody over 225 and a quarter was a heavyweight, even if they were significantly heavier than that. He did a lot of Grand Prix shows, did a dozen of them, and he would compete 3 times at the Olympia. Took 8th place in 96, 7th place here in 97 that we're looking at, 98, 10th place, and that would be the last time we saw him on the Olympia stage. He did do 6 pro shows after that, but never did well, and it's because of what happened to him, which we're going to show you in a moment here. I'm going to keep looking at the posing footage because he had a really good physique, guys. I mean, there was nothing really lagging on his physique. Great back, great arms, legs. Very well put together guy. But I'll show you in a second. Yeah, that's enough for posing, I guess. Yeah, let's go to some photos. This is from a Nick Strength and Power video. So you can see he held his own. There he is with Cormier. There he is next to Ronnie. Of course, Ronnie has a better physique, better shape and everything, but size-wise, he was right there with Ronnie. As you can see, he was actually taller. This is probably a guest posing, I'm guessing. Probably later in his career after the quad tear. Quad tear is what he's famous for. There he was in 2002. So I believe his last Olympia was 98. I think it was 98, 99. I'm not really sure. There he is, younger. So it was right before Night Champions. This is Nasser. I'm not sure why Nick put Nasser in there. I think it was a mistake. That's not Jean-Pierre Fux. That's Nasser El Sonbatty. So there's a great back shot of him. Yeah, so he was squatting in a photo shoot for Chris Lund for Flex magazine. Look how big and full he was. He was a big, big dude. He's still around. He's coaching and stuff. Significantly smaller than that, but look at that. Look at that. That's a Chris Lund shot right there. So Lund used to get the best training shots out of everybody because he demanded the guys use real weights, and he pushed them to go heavy during the photo shoots, which is kind of dangerous because these guys are typically there. Oof. Those are all real plates. He was squatting 675, 7 plates when his patella tendon on one side and the quadricep tendon on the other side just went both at the same time. They popped. So I tore one quad and it was miserable, but at least I had one good leg that whole time to get myself around. This poor guy, it's like that happened to Zach Kahn too, the ZKK. Tore everything, man. So that's it, guys. Those are some forgotten mass monsters of mostly the 90s, but some of these names I'm sure you younger and newer fans were not familiar with. I hope you gained appreciation for just how good these guys were. Obviously, some of them weren't that great on stage, aesthetically pleasing, but in terms of sheer muscle mass, if you like freaky physiques, you know, that's it. That's your guy. So thanks guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please get to the banners. Subscribe, like, share, ring that bell. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps me out a lot. So appreciate you watching, guys. Thanks, and I will see you right here on